First, tensions are rising between the United Nations and Israel after the IDF ordered UN peacekeepers in Lebanon to evacuate amid their ongoing ground operations against Hezbollah. Then we'll turn to the U.S., where authorities have charged an Afghan national living in Oklahoma with plotting to carry out a terrorist attack on Election Day on behalf of the Islamic State, ISIS. But first, our afternoon spotlight. As Israel continues to expand ground operations aimed at degrading Hezbollah in Lebanon, the United Nations is lashing out at the Israeli government over the IDF's proximity to an international peacekeeping force. Now, not to sound churlish, but given that Hezbollah has spent the last year firing over 10,000 rockets and missiles into Israel, what exactly has the UN peacekeeping force been doing? The controversy began on Sunday when the IDF ordered the United Nations interim force in Lebanon to evacuate their bases in southern Lebanon and move 3 miles to the north to allow IDF forces to continue their operations unencumbered. But the UN refused, arguing that their presence was critical, really, to prevent further escalation in the region, according to a report from the BBC. So there's my answer as to what the UN peacekeeping force was doing. Without their critical involvement, Hezbollah might have fired, 20,000 rockets instead of just 10,000 during the past year. But again, I guess that makes me sound churlish. By Tuesday, officials with the UN said IDF forces had established a forward operating base just a few hundred meters from one of the UN's outposts in the area, housing a force of 30 Irish troops, raising concerns within the organization about the possibility of an accidental confrontation. In a statement, the UN said, quote, "This is an extremely dangerous development. It is unacceptable to compromise the safety of UN peacekeepers," they keep using that word, "carrying out their Security Council mandated tasks," end quote. Leaders within the Irish government were also quick to condemn Israel's activity, which they said endangered the lives of their troops. Irish President Michael Higgins called the situation, quote, "outrageous," and accused Israel of threatening their forces, though officials with the UN forces said Israel had made no such threats. Irish Deputy Premier and Defense Minister Michael Martin claimed a nearby explosion triggered by the IDF had damaged an external barrier of the outpost. He also implied the IDF was using the peacekeeping force as a shield against further attacks from Hezbollah as they work to establish a buffer zone in the area. Israel has been relatively quiet on the situation, with their focus locked squarely on rooting out Hezbollah terrorists in the region. For some background, the UN's interim forces in Lebanon was originally created by a UN Security Council resolution back in 1978 to confirm the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Lebanon and help the Lebanese government restore control over the region. After Israeli forces withdrew from Lebanon in 2000 following years of conflict, the UN established what it called the Blue Line, a demarcation line dividing Lebanon from Israel that is ostensibly monitored and patrolled by the UN peacekeeping force. Following the 34-day war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006, the UN Security Council updated the resolution, expanding the peacekeeping. They do keep using that word. I don't think it means what they think it means. Anyway, they expanded the peacekeeping mandate to include monitoring the fragile peace and ensuring that no other force outside of the Lebanese army operates between the Israeli border and the Litani River, which sits about 18 miles to the north. Like much of the UN's operations, however, the interim force in Lebanon, their operation has been criticized as being, let's use the word, toothless, despite their mandate to keep the area free of weapons and armed personnel, really. They have done nothing to prevent Hezbollah from building the area into a sprawling base of operations over nearly 2 decades. Hezbollah effectively controls southern Lebanon, using it to store a massive amount of munitions and to mount attacks on Israeli citizens. It's the, frankly, whole reason that the Israeli military is running a ground campaign there in the first place. And the UN has been virtually silent on Hezbollah's missile and rocket attacks on Israel, which of course began in the wake of last year's 7 October attacks by Hamas and continue to this day. Given their inability to fulfill the core components of their mandate, it once again begs the earlier question, what is the purpose of having a peacekeeping force stationed in Lebanon at all? As of Wednesday, the UN has said they will keep the peacekeeping force in place, adding they continue to remind Israel of their, quote, obligations to protect UN personnel and property. In addition to the UN outpost Israel is currently adjacent to, the UN says they have 29 other positions comprised of international troops along the Blue Line. All right, coming up, U.S. authorities have charged an Afghan national living in Oklahoma with plotting to carry out a terrorist attack on Election Day on behalf of the Islamic State. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. You know, every day we hear about surveillance and how our right to privacy is being infringed upon. And it's true, right? You know what I'm talking about. It feels like we're living in a world where nothing is truly private anymore. And you know why? It's because nothing really is truly private anymore. I mean, most of us, for the sake of convenience, fair enough, right? We hand over our personal information without a second thought on a daily basis. I mean, we're signing up for services, you're shopping online, using social media, and I know you're out there using social media. Well, but this convenience, it comes at a cost. Now, it's time for us to take a stand and fight back for our right to privacy. One tool that's been essential for me in this fight is the all-in-one privacy app called MySudo. That's MySudo, MySudo. It's an app that lets you create multiple digital identities with separate phone numbers and emails so you can keep your personal information private. In this age of constant surveillance, having MySudo is crucial. Now, for my listeners, I've got a special deal. Go to mysudo.com/Mike Baker and use code, wait for it, Mike Baker. I bet you didn't see that coming, to get 30 days free on a Sudo Pro yearly subscription. Take back your privacy. Take it back with MySudo. Trust me, it's worth it. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. The FBI arrested Nasir Ahmed Tawedi, a 27-year-old Afghan national living in Oklahoma, and he was charged on Monday for conspiring to carry out a terrorist attack on Election Day on behalf of ISIS, and that's according to court documents unsealed on Tuesday. The plot was set in motion, reportedly, in August. Tawedi began liquidating family assets, including real estate and personal property, to resettle his family in Afghanistan. Tawedi additionally recruited a co-conspirator, his underage nephew, also of Afghan descent, to assist in the planned attack. As part of his preparation, Tawedi purchased 2 AK-47s, 10 magazines, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition from an undercover FBI informant, believing these weapons, of course, would help him target large gatherings and then die as a martyr. Tawedi's intentions became more apparent through communications seized by authorities. He viewed and saved ISIS propaganda, adding to suspicions, they would be a clue, of his allegiance to the terrorist group. His online searches included inquiries such as how to access Washington, D.C. cameras and research on permitless gun carry laws across various states. He also communicated his plans with an individual believed to be a member of the Islamic State, declaring, quote, God willing, with the help of God, we will get ready for the election day, end quote. The arrest of Tawedi has drawn swift responses from federal officials. Attorney General Merrick Garland stated, quote, the Justice Department remains committed to combating the ongoing threat that ISIS and its supporters pose to America's national security, end quote. Tawedi's arrest also ignited backlash, it is the political season, from the Trump campaign. Spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt criticized the Biden administration's immigration policy, pointing to Tawedi's entry into the U.S. on a special immigrant visa back in September 2021, just a month after the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan. Leavitt argued that Vice President Kamala Harris had, quote, rolled out the red carpet for terrorists like Tawedi, casting this incident as evidence of security failures stemming from the administration's immigration policies. Tawedi's case is not an isolated incident. For background, the case is part of a broader pattern of ISIS-related arrests within the U.S. In June, 8 men with potential ISIS links were arrested in New York, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles, further fueling concerns about terrorist plots to disrupt the upcoming election. Tawedi faces federal charges, including conspiring to provide material support to ISIS, which carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. He also faces a 15-year sentence for obtaining firearms for terrorism. The investigation is ongoing, with authorities indicating additional charges and arrests may follow. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Wednesday, 9 October. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And the rumors that you've heard are true. You can listen to the show ad-free simply by becoming a premium member of the President's Daily Brief. Just visit pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.